Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-affleck.
And it's time for...
We're free, I tell ya. UnSpun.
George. Okay, did you watch it? Did you watch it live?
Yes, I watched it until it got really boring.
Okay, but can we just off the hop here? Like, obviously, the Premier started speaking first, and that was great. And then...
Hold on. I have to take a sip of my drink.
Where did you get that?
Carrie made them here in the office.
Way to go, Carrie.
For fun.
Okay,
for those who are listening, this is a Bonnie Henry cup.
It's a
be kind, be calm, be safe on the other side. So
I love it, and the fact that you have it, we've come full circle. I'm going to tell you, pardon the gardening going on. Like my Zoom calls and my recordings are good. So I sat down to watch that press conference, and Dr. Henry started speaking, and you could see on my Twitter feed, like I posted the video of it because in the moment I was like, "Whoa!" And her voice caught because she was speaking to how relieved she was of it, you know. Yes. But George, like, I'm not kidding you. I was so glad I wasn't live on the radio during this press conference. I cried. I cried for about an hour. Like I didn't realize I wasn't crying at it. I wasn't crying at her. I wasn't even crying at the news of it.
The whole package.
Do you feel like as relieved? I feel so relieved.
I was relieved they finally actually gave us some timeline because come on, you guys. Everybody else, Boris Johnson and Doug Ford, everybody's given dates and timelines to give you some hope and planning abilities based on data, and they really waited, and I thought that was torturous. And even at the press conference, it was like, okay, just get to the dates. Give me the dates. I need to know what to plan my life.
It kind of freaked me out.
Until Dr. Bonnie Henry got up and she gave specific.
Well,
anyways. But yeah,
Premier-Horgan kept saying, and Dr. Henry will tell you, and Dr. Henry will tell you. Give her the mic, man.
He was so scripted this time. They gave him no room to screw it up.
No. But then when they're like, you could have 5 people for dinner, the same 5 people. Like we're back to where we were, last summer. You kind of got your safe 6. You're gonna have one other household that you're gonna hang with. Yeah. But it's like you can have them over tonight. I was like, ooh, I'm not ready for that. And I'm double vaccine girl. Like I'm a little bit like a skittish cat right now. I'm ready, and yet I'm not familiar. Like we've become so trained and ingrained.
You hate people now? You don't. You're like,
I hate people. I hate people. No, I like people. I just like them.
6 feet away or further, please. No hugs.
How do you feel about Hug Day?
I get accused of being a terrible hugger by everybody. I
can attest to that. You don't like it when I hug you. I hug you anyway.
I know. I get it. Well, that's the thing in this world we live in now. Previously to COVID, hugging was a big thing. Yeah. Hugging and side kissing, the one side kiss. Yeah. That's all new. When I was a kid, it was like, good day to you, sir. Handshake. Hey, nice to meet you. As a kid, my parents were like, hey, people would come to the house with, hello, I'm George-affleck. Nice to meet you.
You have to. My parents taught me how to have a firm handshake as well. That was part of our, you come and say hello and you look someone in the eye and you shake their hand and you say hello and then you're free to go. And that's like, great. Right. I don't know. Will we get back to that? I mean, I love my late night shows. I watch them on delay, right? I record Kimmel and Colbert and The Daily Show and all those things because that's kind of like how I like to, I think I told you this probably about a year ago when my son was getting rather stressed out about my constant consuming of news. And those late night hosts have a way of sort of bringing some levity to the facts and the truth, but they still kind of frame it in a way that you're getting some information.
Yeah, I haven't enjoyed Colbert much during this time, actually. I found him too...
It's difficult.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's been more difficult. He's getting his studio audience back, and that'll be better.
Yeah, I think so. He needs that. Yeah. I just feel like it was just too inside baseball or too inside-y. I don't know. Anyways, I know it's a big deal, and we see a light at the end of this tunnel, and it's everything from because I'm looking at the fall, looking at trips I've already booked them a long time ago, And so the date of September 7th, where we'll be able to potentially travel. Now I'm hearing like June, they're going to open the borders up to the States.
That's a rumor. That's a rumor, actually. And then we got Reggie Cicchini.
Federal decision, as you know. So
sorry, just back up. Hold on one sec, because the rumor, because that is now super flying around. I just got a text from my stepdad, who's a snowbird, and they live in Tawas, and they've got mail to pick up in Point Roberts. They want to go to Palm Springs. They're they're trapped like everybody. So he's all keyed into it. Now, yesterday there was a rumor. Len Saunders, who's a immigration lawyer in Blaine, Washington, was on Global News Morning, as well on radio, I believe, with Simi Sarah, and was saying that he's hearing that June 22nd, the borders will reopen. And then Global checked out resources with Reggie Cicchini and Jackson Prosco in Washington, D.C. to ask their sources at the U.S. Side of things. And then also checked in with, I believe, Mercedes Stevenson. I'm not 100% sure, but with our sources here in Canada with regard to, because it's a federal thing, right? So what ended up being confirmed is that there's no confirmation of that. Like, and if there was, somebody would actually say it. What is sort of, I think, being noodled about is that usually, the U.S. side wants to open up.
Well, it kind of is. You can drive down there anytime you want. It's coming.
No, but open up. Like, you can go down there and then not quarantine. Like, you can go down there and not, right?
Yeah.
They want to do that. Where Canada could say, you know what, you still have to 14 days. And that's where the question for me lies, is when will that quarantine of 14 days change? Will you, if you've had 2 doses of vaccine and you're 3 weeks past your second dose, do you still need to quarantine for 14 days? And that gets into the vaccine passport conversation, right? So,
well, I mean, I don't understand the vaccine. All I have to do is show we have an app in BC that shows you your vaccinations. It's all, you can just show them your phone and your app and say, here's my proof. Here's my, So, I think that the Americans might say, or we could say at the border, show your proof that you were vaccinated, and that would probably be enough. I mean, what more do you need? And I think that it's like, it's always those issues like fare gate, people who jump fare gates and don't pay. It's like, okay, what's the margins here that we're talking about? And it's like the whole empty homes thing that I always fight about. You see, if you know that 6% are empty, you either try to focus all your energy on making that gap smaller, or do you just focus on the 94% of the people, of the homes that are full, that we need more of those? It's the same argument. Okay, so if people if they're going to be, scofflaws, people are going to go and they're not going to get vaccinated. Which, by the way, if you go into the States, you can just drive and get vaccinated right now if you wanted to.
Right, that's a good point.
They're desperate for people to go and use their vaccination. So it's kind of, I think it's one of those things you just got to weigh the odds, and I just think that most people in Canada who will go down there are probably. They're going to be vaccinated. I mean, I just think that they will be. I think there'll be such a few number.
I think that's a good point, George. I think it's good because Dr. Henry is definitely not down with a vaccine passport. I did see, what was his name? I think it's like Silver from the Yukon, who the Yukon is opening up with the ability, yes, but also to have people visit and not have to quarantine for 14 days if they prove through their medical system to just ask, why wouldn't we have it so that, you can access my information.
You could create a fake one, but I really don't think people, if you go to that much energy, just go get a shot. I mean, I just think that's such a small amount of people that would go to all that effort, and the margin of them, contaminating and spreading the virus is so minute.
I hope so.
That, I have my piece of paper that I got when I got vaccinated, and I have the app that you can download. It's complicated, actually. This BC app is quite complicated. But you can go in there to
my card.
You got the card, you got the website, you can show this, and then you have your ID, and this is me. Okay. If that's what the Americans want or what the Canadians want, I think, but I just think that we're going to be at 70%, 70% in the next week or so in BC, over 60, pushing 70% first vaccination. I just think, okay, and then the rest of the country is catching up, and we're all going to be around that number by September, double vaccinated. So I don't know.
You have the added sort of real world experience by having your in-laws in the UK and knowing that they're a solid 3 months ahead of us, right? Like there's that. I mean, when we look around, sorry?
Yeah, AstraZeneca. Yeah, they're all at the pubs now. They're all living their lives. totally normal now in England, pretty much.
Did you hear the news today? And we did not discuss this prior to in our briefing, but the news today where there's a scientist, I want to say out of where was he? I think it's Germany. A European scientist, I can say with confidence, who has discovered what is causing that VIT, what is causing the blood clots in the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccine. There's like a recumbent something or other that he believes can be fixed.
Oh, there you go. That's the beauty of the fact that it's, there's all this technology we have now.
And the fact that we were using it for emergency use. That's why emergency use approval, the EUA, that all these vaccines were used on, because we just want to get them out as soon as possible. That's what science can learn from,
all the data we have now. We have 50 million people who got AstraZeneca. So you got a lot of good data there that shows you the kinds of people who might have got blood clots, what their background, what their DNA, who knows? There might be all sorts of information, but it's still such a small amount. The sample of people who got it is like
tiny. Did you see Justin McElroy, the CBC, posted the Prince Rupert graph?
No.
Zero. Zero. You want to know if vaccines work? Check out what happened in Rupert, a hotspot in BC. Emergency pop-up. Everybody there, literally everybody, took it. They all were like, yep, let's do this. And there is now zero.
Yeah, there you go.
I love it.
Let's get on it.
One more thing to mention, and I'm not sure if I said it already, but when my son is getting he's 13, he's getting his first dose on Tuesday. I know Quinn is also...
Tuesday.
Oh, he's Tuesday as well. Great. Oh, 10:15.
Or in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. I'm Linda Steele. I'm filling in on CKNW afternoons in the afternoon.
I know, it's Linda's last week, so...
I'm in denial. Don't talk to me.
I was listening yesterday. It was a bit of a love-in with... who was it? It was
Jan Arden?
Jan Arden.
Yeah, so great. I was listening to her hit with Chris Galis. This is a little bit of inside baseball, but it's so fun. I was driving down the road and she was doing her daily debrief with Chris Galis, who's the Global News Hour at 6, of course. And he was in the middle of answering something about what they were working on for 6. And she goes, sorry to do this for you, Chris. I've just got to take this call. And then she answers her cell phone and goes, yes, I'll let you in right now. I'll let you in. And she goes, I'm sorry. I've been waiting for this Amazon package for weeks. And that was definitely calling in the middle. I'm like, she's not.
Check out.
But I thought, how brilliantly human, right? Like, how brilliantly human. And then,
It's good for Chris's ego, too. It's take him down a level there.
Well, Amir Ali jumped in and ended up finishing the daily debrief while Linda got the
his last week. Amir is their producer, sort of associate producer and technician and or engineer, and he's leaving, too. It's a big loss for CKNW.
He's going to the Daily Hive, and I get to do Amir's last shows with him, so I'm looking forward to it. He's a rock star. You're going to hear him for years and years to come. He's the next generation of broadcaster, in my opinion. He's so incredibly talented. But with Linda, did you see that that she also got the proclamation from the city of Vancouver?
Yes. I'm sorry, but come on. That's just weird.
Is it?
Don't agree. I mean, I love Linda's great. I don't know her.
She's great.
But seriously, this is. I mean, it's I no offense to Linda, but it kind of devalues the whole concept of the. I don't know. I'm sorry, but it just seems like what.
I know what you're saying because it's politics and media. I get what you're saying, but I like it. The reason why I like it is that she's leaving that, so it's not like you're greasing the skids here to make things easier for you moving forward, because tomorrow's her last day. Friday's her last day.
Not leaving journalism. She might come back. I don't know. I just think it's.
I think she was retiring. She's hanging it up. She said she's hanging up the microphone. We'll see.
Sure, but she's. Still,
I love her.
No, and I just think it's weird. It's to me, it's that's something that where people have spent their entire lives contributing to the city in a way that's and journalism is important, but there's a lot of people doing great journalism in our city. So Kim Boland, give her the freedom of the city. If you want to give somebody who's really making an impact in our city, I'm sorry, Linda. Again, I just think that it's just weird, and it just seems a bit, yeah.
You're entitled to your opinions, George, and that's why we do UnSpun podcast. By the way, if you're mad at what George just said, you can find him on Twitter at George. Affleck, and you can find me at Jody Vance. That's Jody with a Y. Vance. You should go to the orca.ca, obviously, and sign up for the Fin, as you get all kinds of great news and views each and every weekday morning delivered directly to your inbox. And I got to say, I've been enjoying reading Rob Shaw, obviously, especially the article about the debacle that is the cruise lines blip that then all of a sudden goes all the way up the food chain in the United States, and cruise ships can now bypass because they were forced to stop in Vancouver and Victoria on their way to Alaska. It was part of it, but it's temporary that they no longer have to, right?
Yeah, I think so. Here, because I saw you tweet this out just on, because we weren't going to actually get too much into this, but I saw you tweet out about the route.
I was just curious.
You were asking, and I was going to respond, but then I saw somebody did already. Because of course, the route when you go from Seattle to Alaska, you go on the outside of the coast. You go way outside in the middle of the ocean, so you don't see coastline for basically a couple of days.
Yeah.
And so you spend a lot of time in Seattle. If you've ever come up through the water in Seattle and taken a cruise, and even the small cruises from Victoria, it's a lot. It's nice. It's like taking the ferry to Victoria, right? A lot of little islands, and it's not dramatic. It's beautiful, of course. It's populated. It takes you leave Seattle at the end of the day, I think. So you actually miss most of the coast when you leave Seattle. And you wake up in the morning and you're actually out in the middle of the ocean. And then you're out in the middle of the ocean for a couple of days. And then you're finally coming closer to so you really miss a lot of what the whole point of the cruise is our coastline, which is mostly British Columbia and mostly the inside passage, the whole area inside on the other side, this side of Vancouver Island. So while I'm disappointed that the federal government and provincial government didn't take this issue seriously and didn't try to find and basically, I don't know if they could have solved it, to be honest, because of our restrictions that we have, and we would have to change our restrictions.
Yeah.
But I think that they took too much light of it. And now, the concern is, of course, this will be permanent. But I think if you're the cruise ships, I think they actually look at the leaving from Vancouver and going up to Alaska. The departure is beautiful, obviously. Vancouver's great. And because you spend almost the entire trip watching and looking at the coast, from an experience point of view, from a marketing point of view for tourists, it's much more appealing. It's also much easier, and it's a long trip. It adds a day basically to the cruise come from Seattle in a lot of ways. So there actually is efficiencies for them to go from Vancouver. So I'll be interested to see how much. Right now, the cruise ships are going. We need to move.
We need to go. Yeah,
passengers. But I think a lot of them will say, Vancouver is actually a better place for us to leave from because of the experience, but also because of time and facilities. Seattle doesn't have the facilities that we have. If you go down to the docks, they don't have the kind of facilities that we have. It's not. You get off the ship and you're basically at the stadiums there. You've ever been down there. It's industrial. It's not nice.
It's not what we have here, for sure.
Right into downtown. So.
Yeah. And you know what, George? An old friend of mine was a port and shopping guide on cruise ships for years and years and years, and so I know the business. I've never been on a cruise myself, but she's been cruising for decades. And the amount of money that is generated from excursions and from organizing and arranging people to go to and from, and how there's currency, the transfers and how you do it and where you go. And here's the thing, and the junkets that you go on, and not just for when you land, and for the cities, obviously that's the upside for Victoria and Vancouver, the tourism piece. How many people go to Joe Forte's or Cardero's or whatever?
The hotels themselves are 70% of capacity.
But the on-ship revenue is significant. So when people are like, this could be permanent, I'm like, I doubt it. I think what you said is very valid too. And we weren't even really planning on touching on that. No. But going from cruise ships and sort of that reopening vibe with that, and looking at the water, sitting on a patio, and how the city of Vancouver, I saw Brad West, the mayor. By the way, Brad West, congratulations on the birth of the second child. Little baby boy, little Owen, I believe, just today. So congratulations to the West family. But he had tweeted a couple of days ago or a week ago, or not quite a week ago, because we would have spoken about it on the podcast here, but how Port Coquitlam was once again waiving the patio permitting fees. Yes. And I believe that's been done in Delta. I believe that's been done in other jurisdictions, but people in Vancouver were still paying because, of course, we're bankrupt. here in Vancouver. Anyway, we're waiving those now in the city of Vancouver, and I think that is huge for restaurateurs. Huge.
Great timing.
I was trying to go positive. Did you see me try and make it into a positive, George?
It's like this council is like, oh my god. I mean, it's
right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Let's do that.
I mean, I think what's going to be interesting is the challenge once this pandemic is over, that the engineering and the planning staff, mostly engineering, because they're the ones who deal with this. And when traffic starts coming back and they're like, yeah, crap, we got all these patios. How do we get rid of them?
Right.
And there's going to be a real push, I think, because we've always wanted more patios, but the cities, and I fought for them when I was in council, like more patios. Why are we so restrictive? There was a patio moratorium in downtown Vancouver until this pandemic. You know that? You couldn't actually get a new patio in the downtown core because of the concerns about alcohol consumption in the downtown east side. There was a development permit that came to us on about an Irish pub on Granville at Davie, and they said, "Can we just get a patio?" And we said, "No, it's a moratorium. You can't have it." I'm like, "What? Come on!"
Do you remember in 2010 when we had the Olympic Games and there was patios everywhere and it was a blast and nothing exploded? Like it wasn't the end of the world as we knew it.
I know. So hopefully, not only Vancouver, but all these cities, we want to be outside when Vancouverites generally, and I mean the whole region and everywhere, we really want to be outside if we can. I don't know why. It's a weird kind of culture that we have this desire to sit outside. But we have all these restrictions, and Vancouver is the worst. And a lot of it has to do with, access to, sidewalks and
well, now, I mean,
a big problem.
there are some patios that are on busy enough streets that I would not sit on that on-street patio. I know,
some of them are weird.
They're weird. They're just a little, I mean, we need to calm it down. I want to ask you another question, if I may, and this is sort of off topic of patios, but, since the beginning, what are we, 125 episodes of UnSpun in here? Crazy. Since day one, we have been talking about an encampment of one form or another. It's usually a tent city in a park, managed by the park board or mismanaged by the park board, depending on your perspective. And now we're looking at this interesting scenario of these van campments, right? These people living in their cars and vans and whatever, and they're in parking lots. So what happens from a city point of view?
Well, what's interesting is because, of course, with the park board and the tents, the city was it's not within our jurisdiction. We're not the park board, and the park board made that decision. So it's really blah 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 blah. Now, of course, with all these campers, it is the city's job to decide what to do. They're the ones who have to say, are they going to be passive and not do anything and let them just sit, or are they going to get aggressive, as they should? And tow them and get them out of there and make sure that they're running vehicles and that they have insurance. I mean, what is the liability for the city? If somebody gets injured, the rule basically, I sat through several in-camera meetings where there are lawsuits against the city. I can't tell you which ones, but there are incidents on city property. The person gets hurt, they sue. I think some of them were significant people, like they got really hurt badly. And so because it was city property, they found liability with the city. And the city is sort of self-insured. So we just pay out, we give them millions every year to these kinds of situations. We'll be litigious. The city will be litigious and try to fight it with lawyers behind the scenes. But it's unlikely you'd ever go to court with the city. So they settle for millions of dollars every year with all these kinds of small, large settlements. And so in this kind of situation, if you have a vehicle parked on city land and let's say, there's a fire in it and it's not insured and the person is severely injured, what's the liability on that? I don't know. Right. I mean, it's an interesting question. So, but the general rule is if a car is parked on a street, when they have to clean streets, anywhere in the city because of leaves, they put the thing on the thing. If you don't have this vehicle moved by tomorrow, we're going to tow it. Yeah. Usually they just tow it around the corner because they don't want to be too cruel to people. They'll just move them around the corner. They won't usually take them to a tow lot. Sometimes they do. So, there is a precedence where you're saying, we're going to give you 2 days. This is happening in 2 days. Here's a thing. So, we're going to tow you. So then, of course, what happens, though, if potentially with these campers is they squat and they won't leave the campers. And then it becomes an issue. Well, we can't tow it with the person in it. Yeah. So you're like, and I'm sure the police are unwilling to drag the person out. But I just don't think that's going to happen that much. I think people will either move their vehicles or they'll have to accept the repercussions and they'll tow these things. I mean, it comes back to that whole question. We talked about this last week about locations for vehicles to be parked.
Yeah. And we also talked about
where the
housing.
city wants to go, which I don't think we should. But.
we also talked about housing and the want to rezone, upzone, change the zone, whatever it is, without public consultation, just randomly build 12-story buildings in areas all over the city in the name of creating more
fast track
affordable housing, right? But how did it arbitrarily become 12-story? Like, honestly, George, you and I talked about it before. If this was a 4-story building proposal, I think everybody would have a better sort of vibe around it. Like, but it's 12. It's like, we can't do it for fewer than 12 stories. It's like, really? Okay.
I think there's, so you're referring to Councillor Christine Boyle, Vancouver's motion to create a program where if you built a 12, you could basically bypass the whole public hearing process, build a 12-story building as long as it was social housing. But her social definition was quite broad, as it were. But
market social.
And they called 12-story towers. I live in Yaletown. 12 stories is a podium, not a tower. But anyways, we've had this conversation before.
I live in Kitsilano, and 4 stories is higher gentle density.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. I think that, and there was an interesting, Francis Bueller had a story today. I'll tell you why I said that. But first, Francis Bueller had a story today, which was very interesting. And she said a social housing construction project has not been approved or built in Kits specifically in 19 years.
Right.
And, you think about Kits, which you're just outside of, I always think you're kind of in Kits, but you're sort of outside Kits. But you live, the way you live is kind of the Kit. It's the Kits model, though, the multiple density and a small site. And that's kind of the lower Kits model. And the high density, right? But you can't see it. And that's gentle density, as you refer to. 3-story walk-ups, which is in the Kits, is what, if anybody's ever been to Kits or you haven't been to Kits, everybody when I was at university, you lived in the West End or you lived in Kits, or Commercial Drive. And everybody lived in those 3-story wood walk-ups. That's what we all lived in, kind of thing, right? And they were all built in the 60s because there was these tax incentives to build these. They're market rentals, but they're cheaply built and they do the job.
Right.
Your question is 12 stories too high, and would a 3-story walk-up like those in Kits be more acceptable? But the problem is you don't get the density. But it's a good question. I think in the end, what she was asking for was way too aggressive. It failed. And also there are policies in place that already do fast track developments that are related to affordable housing. The Rental 100 program is that. And there's the developments along arterials, so there's this policy. So her motion was actually somewhat redundant. And actually there was an amendment made by Pete Fry. And I was watching this and I said, that's totally out of order, because basically he turned it into what we already had. It's like it got called out of order. It's interesting, but it raised the question about, willingness to allow social housing in your neighborhood, because overwhelmingly people came and said, absolutely not. And they said, because they didn't like the fact there was not going to be consultation on this process. These would be fast tracked and there'd be no public hearing. And so is it that, or is it because you don't want social housing pushed into your communities in a quick way?
Or is it a little column A and a little column B? Because it could be both.
Yeah, it could be.
Right? Because I have no problem personally. As somebody who lives in a city, there has to be room for everybody to live in the city. If I want to live in some, Stepford, whatever neighborhood of perfection, I shouldn't live in a downtown core, because there needs to be room for everybody to live, including me, because I'm not the top 1%, let me tell you. But, there has to be room for, my mom in the 70s was a single mother with 2 children and needed to make ends meet. She was working as a lab technician in the hospital with 2 kids, and she needed to make ends meet. What would we have done without Blue Ridge Gardens apartments on Berkeley Road in North Vancouver? Like, what would we have done without that very inexpensive popcorn ceiling, bad shag carpeting, ugly linoleum, pink toilet, all of that? And it was fantastic. It was fantastic. We need
really quickly. I think.
Go ahead.
And I know, but because we're almost out of time. I think that 100% what you're saying. I also think the problem that this council has and this city has, and most is a backlog, right? Why not focus on saying, let's just do a moratorium on. Let's just rubber stamp everything that's already in, and just say, as long as there's not issues related to safety. Get them out.
Go. I agree with you.
Just get them out of the door. Just get them out. Get this stuff built. That is the problem. There's so much backlog, so much potential development to be done that's already in the books that just needs to get built.
It's almost, George, it's almost like everybody's on hold.
Yeah.
And they have to press 1 or say yes.
Your column. Yes.
So check out my column because it actually has garnered. I told my son today as we were.
I thought this is going to get people talking.
It did. I was surprised. And when I submitted it, I thought McLean's going to think I'm nuts. I actually in the subject line put, I'm weird. And he sent back, oh goodness, Jody, who hurt you? Read my column at theorca.ca. Always tune in for UnSpun podcast, our weekly good times here with myself and George-affleck. And you've got an op-ed piece coming. Very quickly, tell people what's coming.
Lifeguards have new uniforms. They're atrocious. They look like McDonald's uniforms. They're bright yellow. They're not happy. They're hideous. They're polyester.
Red with a white cross. First aid. That's what you wear. This is not brain surgery, nor is brain surgery filling water features at our parks when we want to stay outside and gather outside. Come on, we'll get into that next week. Say goodbye, George.
Bye.